So tonight we are going to start our third session here of Home Builders, and we're going to be focusing on couples, and more specifically how a husband can show love in a way that meets the needs of his wife. So hopefully, guys, you're tuning in right now because this is going to be really important for you all. And more specifically, we want to talk about how guys can really love their wives in a way that will motivate them and energize them.
When we were talking about our home builders this week and planning for it, we wanted to hit that recurring topic of the crazy cycle. And if you've ever done any kind of a marriage enrichment with us before, you've heard us talk about the crazy cycle. And we'll talk about what it is specifically in just a minute. But as we were reviewing, some of the points, the Emerson Eckricks is the guy who does the Love and Respect series, and we came across a new edition of the Love and Respect video series, and he was explaining the next cycle after the crazy cycle is the Energizing Cycle. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight some.
But the hopefully the next cycle that you enter into,
yes, get out of the crazy
cycle. But just to kind of get everybody on the same page, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but men and women actually think differently. I know. I mean, that's worth the price of admission right there, to know that. But actually, how we want to be valued is differently. We talked a lot about valuing each other last week, I guess it was. Mm-hmm. And the way of valuing our kids specifically last week, yeah. But the way a man wants to be valued is very different than the way a woman wants to be valued. A man desires and really I would say even needs respect, and a woman desires love.
Mm-hmm. What happens when a man doesn't get respect, he eventually begins to act in a way that feels unloving to his wife, and his wife then eventually begins to act in ways that are disrespectful, like specifically disrespectful to her husband, and then he reacts by acting unloving, and she reacts by acting disrespectful, and it just kind of keeps going. That's why they call it the crazy cycle.
Yep.
But tonight we're going to focus on the man's side of things of how he can do a better job of actually expressing love to his wife. And next week we'll look at how a woman can better act out respect to her husband, because these two words, love and respect, they, in our culture, I don't even think we have a good working definition of either of those words. They've both been twisted and given crazy, really, context. And even in the church, especially the word respect comes with a lot of negative connotation that it should never have. So it's just, I think of, respect is the manly version of love. And love is not some ooey gooey thing that a woman needs. It's actual what hits her heart, what she's made for.
What motivates her, what energizes her, which is kind of what we're talking about. And so in these new videos that we were watching, and I say new videos, they were new to us, but it was a new edition basically of Love and Respect. He's talking about this energizing cycle, and it just really stood out to us. And it's basically, like we said, kind of replacing or displacing the crazy cycle. And it's getting into more of a life-producing cycle. And so, men, what are the things that you can say or do that will bring life to your wife and will energize her? What's going to motivate her to speak and treat you with the level of respect that you desire and again, even need? Many times we'll treat our wives really in an unloving way, with this idea that somehow that's going to provoke them to respect us. And, saying it out loud, it just sounds crazy because it is. It actually is irrational thinking. If we really take the time to think about it, acting in an unloving way is never going to motivate your wife to act in a respectful way. And, there's obviously some different reasons why we do that. It's out of fear. It's out of our own lack and our own need. But if we will understand, and I just want to kind of give us this little formula for our man brains here, is your love will motivate her towards respect. Her respect will motivate you towards love, and it's automatic. That's what's amazing about it, is she almost can't help but respond in a respectful way to you acting in a loving way towards her. So guys, we have the power to do this. But just a quick word of warning, I guess, is it will never be natural. Like the way that my wife desires love is not going to be natural. It's not my natural way of thinking. And God commanded it because he knew we needed him to tell us, guys, it's not natural. You're going to have to agape love your wives, because that's what they need.
Mm-hmm. 1 Peter 3:7 says, you husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered.
Yeah, and this isn't a verse that's talking about how weak women are, not in the least. It's actually talking specifically about the relationship between a husband and a wife, and really about how about those areas where your wife is vulnerable, and how to be understanding about those vulnerabilities that she has. And we're going to be talking next week about the vulnerabilities that the husband has, and how the wife can be understanding towards her husband in those areas of vulnerability. But we're going to dive in and talk more in depth here about a wife's need. And so the first one that we want to talk about is direct attention. And women need face-to-face eye contact, right? They want you to stop, look up from what you're doing, and pay attention. And men are just not naturally designed this way. And again, we're talking in here in generalities, because I actually am a little bit more face-to-face than the average man that really wants to be shoulder to shoulder. I mean, bars are actually designed for men to be shoulder to shoulder each other, because that's what they want. They don't want to be face to face. Again, I'm a little different. Kim's a little bit different in some of these areas. So we're talking about a bell curve. We're talking about generalities. So don't get thrown off by that if you're like, well, I must not be a woman, or I must not be a man, or like it's not. That's not what it is. We're talking in generalities to help us to understand our husbands and our wives a little bit better. But generally speaking, women desire face-to-face, and of course everybody wants direct attention. I mean, I want that, you want that. We don't like looking at this part of our husband or wife's face while their face is down in a phone or on a computer. But especially for women, they need direct attention.
Yes, for a woman, we have an internal question inside of us: am I worth looking at? Am I beautiful? Am I worth beholding? And so to not get that during conversation leaves that question unanswered. Actually, that's not true. It answers the question negatively. I'm not worth looking at. I'm not worth beholding. And so it's really important. It's like a basic need. Women have that need. We want to know that we're beautiful. We want to know that we're worth looking at, and we're more interesting than whatever it is that they're looking at. So
and you are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Thought I'd embarrass you a little. But we get the privilege, guys, of doing that. We get the privilege of answering that question for our wives, and we need to see it that way, and not. And I know when you're in the middle of whatever it is you're working on, it's going to feel like an inconvenience at times, to have to look up from what you're doing. But in the broad scheme of things, what is more important? And you really have to ask yourself, like, as we were talking about this, we're going to be talking about, more like laying down our lives for our wives. But I would take a bullet for Kim. I would. But am I willing to lay down my computer for her? Am I willing to lay down my phone for her? It's not enough to lay down your life and to take a bullet for your wife. You have to lay down your phone too. And that's that's kind of where the rubber meets the road, you know. So I've stepped on lots of toes now. We'll move on to empathy, including my own, by the way. Empathy. So when she's sharing her problems, this one's going to step on my toes. When she's sharing her problems with you, she is not necessarily looking for a solution. Never looking for a solution.
Not never. Almost never.
Almost never. So ask the question, do you just need a listening ear right now, or are you looking for a solution?
Like literally ask that. That has been a game changer for our relationship when I'm sharing about a problem or just sharing my feelings, because I can be sharing my feelings and it's not even a problem in my mind, but Jason is like, well, she's talking because she needs a solution. And that's not true at all. I just need a listening ear. I need for you to know how I'm feeling. I don't know why. It's just important that you know how I'm feeling.
And for guys, that doesn't make any sense, right? It's not natural.
Right.
Like, this is going against everything natural in you. Like, I won't say never, but I would almost never bring up a problem without the goal of trying to reach a solution. It would never dawn on me to do that, because that's just not natural to me. So for
a woman, the solution is, you know how I feel. Now you're sharing in my feelings. Problem solved.
Now the problem's solved somehow, magically. Doesn't make sense. Like I said, doesn't make sense. But it's real. Like, it really is real. And I'm not trying to discount. You know, there's that funny thing. It's not about the nail.
Yeah.
You know, that's the whole, if you haven't seen that, just look up on YouTube. It's not about the nail. Like, that's what that whole thing is. And it kind of makes fun of the woman's perspective of, it's not about the nail. It's not about the nail. But, like, there is a reality to, I really just have to let all of this out and process all of this out loud. And it's a real need. Like, we don't want to discount that it's some kind of, well, this is the way women are. It's an actual real need. So,
and women, next week, when we talk about the part how we help our relationship with our husbands, we're going to have to learn that just because if you always do that, that's too much. You know, a man can't just take it all. So you have to, like, make it count and not just always express all of your feelings and expect him to have a listening ear for all of it.
And have other outlets, like ladies that you get to talk with, and you know, that's why that's so important to have other outlets of being able to talk through things with. But another thing is in the area of resolution and peacemaking and things like that, women really need to hear, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Again, this goes back to that laying down your life. You know, laying down your right to be right is huge. And you know, it's you're communicating, hey, you're worth it. You know.
Yeah, taking for a wife, for the husband to take the first step. I mean, let's say you're both really wrong,
which is usually the case, right?
Or neither of you are wrong, you're just having it out and you can't figure out how to stop it. But when the husband takes that first step of reconciling, it's like saying, you're worth it. You are worth pursuing. You're worth pursuing more than it's necessary for me to be right. And that's really huge. Again, it's that's that base need. That woman needs to know that she's worth pursuing. She's worth laying down her life for. Worth laying down her rights. Your rights.
The guy's rights for. And guys, the last thing we want to talk about is just that woman's need to feel treasured, to feel pursued and sought after. And so she needs to be reminded that, you know, your love for her it's stronger. It's more than fill in the blank, whatever it is. It's more than work. It's more than the hobby that you're pursuing, more than the game that you're playing. It's more than anything or anyone. And she needs that reassurance of your love often. So it's not just that, hey, I really treasure you, I really value you. Well, I told her once, and you know, if she can't remember that, then that's her problem. You know, it's.
And this is a little
often.
bit of it. Yeah, it's just kind of. This is not how you show your reassurance of that love. How you show your wife that you treasure her is going to be a little bit different for each
every
for
relationship.
every relationship. And so one of our homework questions for you is for you to ask your wife what you did when you were dating that made her feel pursued and treasured. Ask your wife, what did I do that made you feel special, that made you feel pursued and treasured? And then ask her why. Why was that meaningful? So that's your first question.
Yeah, and I'm putting these in the comments for you guys so you can have those. The second thing we want you to do is ask your wife, what is one thing that you could do that would motivate her and energize her to respect you more? So what we're talking about is you're asking her, how can we get, what's the quickest way off of the crazy train? What's the quickest way out of that crazy cycle and into the energizing cycle? Like, as a husband, what can you do to get off of that train?
Because you're asking her specifically for you. Like, what is it that you need the most right now? What's the best thing that I can do for you right now? So this week, have conversations about that and discover what makes her feel loved. And wives, I want to say to you, work hard at articulating in few words, if you can, the least words amount of possible, if you can, like short sentences, what makes you feel loved? Tell your husbands how they can be successful at loving you, because they really want to be successful. And realize it's not natural for them. They're going against what's natural for them. So when they do great things that make you feel really loved, tell them, this was great. Thank you so much. I feel really loved. Because we need the feedback, so we need to know what we're doing good. It's pretty obvious when we do things bad. We don't necessarily need feedback about that. Although you do. We do need to express, when you did this, I felt this way. And so, but just like we need feedback for that, we really do need feedback for when we're doing things well, so we can continue.
And really the foundation for those conversations, if the foundation can be, my wife is a good-willed person, and my husband is a good-willed person, and it's on the basis of trust of, well, yeah, I know that they are doing things for themselves because they feel they're not feeling valued, they're not feeling whatever it is. They're doing things for themselves, but they're not doing things against me because I know they're a good-willed person. That's not their intent. And man, when you have that as a basis, then you've got a platform to do all of these other things. And just to kind of reiterate, guys, direct attention, face to face, eye to eye contact with your wife, to answer that question. You're worth looking at. Okay, you're worth beholding. Empathy, that's number 2. Just when she's sharing her problem with you, she's not necessarily looking for a solution. She wants to be heard. She wants to know that you are there as a listening ear for her. And so ask her that question. Do you need a listening ear, or do you need a solution? And then in the area of resolution and peacemaking, being quick, being the one to take the first step to reconcile. It's communicating to her that you're worth pursuing, you're worth me laying my life down. And then finally, kind of along the same lines of helping her and reassuring her that she is worth pursuing. That, and then again, that's your homework of finding out what are those specific ways that she feels valued and loved when you speak or do those things for her. So, yeah.
So next week we will do the opposite side. We will talk about how we as wives can show value to our husbands, and that's very different. It's not natural for us too. So we want to unpack what that word respect means from a wife to a husband.